We're ready to go?
Yeah, welcome everyone. I'm Daniel Oliveira. I'm consultant at Lean Institute Brazil. This is a parallel session that brings the people bridge, where people growth meets process excellence. I'd like to warmly welcome Robert Martichenko and Matt Melrose. They work at Trailpath Workplace Solutions, helping organizations build a true culture of continuous improvement by connecting people, growth, and process excellence. Robert also recently joined us online at the Lean Summit Brazil. It was a great honor to us. And it's an honor again being here with you. So it's up to you, Robert and Matt. Welcome.
Danielle, thank you. Hello, everybody. I love my friends at the Lean Enterprise Brazil and the Lean Enterprise Colombia and Peru and all places in South America and for wherever you are around the world. This is just an incredible event that the Lean Global Network puts on, and always pleased to be part of it. We have 30 minutes and we want to have a few minutes for Q&A, so we're just going to kind of get rolling here and just continue to talk about the work that many of you know that we're doing. As a lot of our friends know, Matt and I spent 20 years building Lean Core, which was lean logistics, lean supply chain, lean training, and company. It was sold in 2020, and now Matt and I and the rest of the team, we have moved specifically to the people side of continuous improvement, and we're trying to now approach and bridge all the work we've done in process improvement with now work we need to do on the people side. And so we're just going to continue telling you what we're learning every time a few months goes by since we've talked to the lean networks in the past. We've learned much more, and we're just here to talk about it because we're really trying to share the message. So with that, Matt, I'm going to hit the highlights and then I'm going to hand it over to Matt. So this is just the people crisis continues. 54% of a workforce does not believe that we are committed to them as leaders. 34% of our workforce are only partially engaged in our work, and I think that's probably actually more like 50 or 60. What we're learning is a lot of people just don't feel purpose and don't feel connected to their work. And 45% of people, almost 50% of people, are identifying with declining or just surviving in the workplace. And this is all data that's been being compiled for years. Now, with all of the rhetoric and fear that's being instilled with all the conversations of artificial intelligence, these statistics, the connecting people in the workforce is even becoming a dire situation, more than it was a couple of years ago. So this is what we've learned, and we're learning a lot of really interesting things. The first is that human beings want to grow and thrive. Human beings want to be successful in the workplace, but we oscillate between declining, just surviving, growing, and thriving. No matter where you are, whether you're a brand new team member inside an organization or whether you're the CEO of a global 500, a global Fortune 500 company, you are either declining, just surviving, growing, or thriving. And we need to recognize that people want to go from declining, surviving, to growing and thriving. Very few people get up in the morning and say, I hope I have a terrible day today. Most people want to have a good day and grow and thrive. Then it comes to processes, and I know there's a lot of people on the phone and participating in this global forum that we're having, that know a lot about processes, a lot more than I do about processes. We lean people are the experts, but there's one thing we do know about processes and that we've learned is that unlike people who want to grow, processes don't want to grow. They want to fall apart. The second law of thermodynamics, the laws of entropy, in layman's term, process drift. Processes get up in the morning and they have one objective, and that is to fall apart. So if we design a process that we believe is optimal and we leave it, then it's going to go from optimal to stable to inefficient to chaotic. That is the path that it is trying to take. So when you think of all the work we've done in lean, you just think of all the essence of visual management and 5S, and poka-yoke and quality at the source, and creating flow for stability. What is it that those things are really doing? Really, at the end of the day, if you dig into it, they're just tools and techniques to try to keep processes from falling apart, because the process wants to fall apart. But on the other side, we have people who want to grow. And so what we've learned is that we cannot take the same approach to processes as we take for people. And what we've also learned, and I'm sure many of you have seen the millions of debates of what is leadership and what is management. And you've got all these dynamics of what a leader is versus a manager. And well, I think we finally have cracked the code on this one. And management is about processes. Management is about keeping processes from falling apart. Leadership is about people. Leadership is about growing people. And then if we go to the middle piece of this, of course, is the organization. And we need to understand that organizations are also in some scale of, in some spectrum of performance. It's either lagging, or there's just inconsistent results, or then we move to reliable results, and we move to where organizations are actually advancing. And what you'll realize is that an organization is truly only going to advance when two things are happening. The first is processes are optimal, and the second is people are thriving. But you will not get optimal processes before people are growing and thriving. It's just not possible to have people that are declining and just surviving and expect stable and optimal processes. So as a lean community, we have to understand that it is time to focus on people and what a people first is. And now this is where I can get myself in trouble, in particular in my lean community where my dear friends are. But we've learned something. We know that lean talks about respect for people, and we understand that. But what we're learning is that when we talk about respect for people in lean, often when you dig into it, what we're talking about is respecting people so they can fix broken processes. And that's not enough. Respect for people has to now get into, are these people, are they feeling safe and secure? Do they have financial security? Do they have autonomy and control of their day? Do they feel purpose in the work? It cannot just be about fixing processes. We have to make sure that we're dealing with people, body, mind, and soul, and then allow them to work inside the organizations. So with that, that's the people bridge. We're just trying to say we've got to bridge people growth with process excellence if we want to have performance. And I'll give you an example of a case study example, and then I'm going to hand it over to Matt. So here's an example where the organization is saying, we want people growth and we want process excellence. This particular organization has invested a lot in lean over the last 20 years. And I have to admit that they feel like they didn't get the prize that they were promised. They're saying we've made the investments, we've tried, but where are these these results that we believed were going to be fundamental and breakthrough? And so they're not giving up. They're saying, let's go another round at it. Let's go again. Let's reset. Let's go again. So we've identified the three business problems that they really they want to work on. One is their customer satisfaction. The second is reduced complexity. They have frameworks all over the place. They have models all over the place. They have tools and training all over the place. And people are just confused. There's such an abundance of stuff that nobody knows really what's going on. And then also they want management system stability, how they set targets, how they decide what work they're going to do. Think of Hoshin planning, think of strategy deployment, but actually getting down to the floor level. So these are the three things that they want out of their next round of work. And we know that this work will be done by process excellence and people growth. On the process excellence side, we are going to take our lean approach, our lean mentality, and our lean education that we know. So we're going to design processes for standardization and quality at the source and flow. And then we're going to operate processes with PDCA and leadership that is going to be part of the operation, and then we will improve our processes. But that is not how we're going to do this with people. PDCA does not work with people. People are complex. We observe, we feel, we decide after we feel, then we act from that. We don't do plan, do, check, act. We observe, then we feel, and then we decide what we're going to do. So we need, in the people side, it needs to be about teaching so people can learn. There needs to be a platform for people to participate, and then people need to advance, and not advance just by fixing broken processes. They need to advance by improving their lives. They have to have a better life because they have a job and a work life that is helping them with their entire life. And this may be a responsibility some organizations aren't willing to sign up for, but I can tell you there are organizations that are signing up for this, and the work is really fundamental and producing significant results. Okay, with that, I kind of teed up just the vibe. Matt will get into a little bit more of the actual, okay, well, what are we actually doing?
Yeah, thanks, Robert. And I want to kind of build on a couple of concepts that you kind of mentioned and how we kind of connect these kind of three things together in a couple of different themes here. I'm just going to work myself, from starting in the lower left and kind of work my way up around. When we talk about the people growth piece of it specifically, I think the other thing that we have learned and validated is that we are all different and unique as individuals. And our learning has also taught us that these are why perhaps some of the broad stroking, kind of broad stroking brush approaches that we've taken maybe haven't yielded the outcome that we were looking for, whether that was, some form of measure of engagement or participation or otherwise. But we have to be able to kind of create these unique paths. In the manufacturing world, we have this path, plan for every part that we leverage, as relative to how we support our manufacturing processes and the flow of goods into it to support, our end customers. Well, the reality is our people are no different, and we need something that is unique, kind of to each and every one relative to their interests, their desires, their past, their present, their future, and how we take that kind of customization into consideration, but obviously doing so in a scalable way. The second part of that is how we support leaders to be able to support those people in advancing their story, whatever that looks like on their particular journey. And how do we create a kind of more standardized way of helping leaders understand what it means to be a good leader from both a process and people centricity, and then obviously have mechanisms to actually help them actually facilitate, not just in sharing information, but how do we actually help them build new habits and create new ways, and how do we help facilitate that advancement from a leadership point of view? Robert mentioned the difference between management and leaders. I have had the kind of humble opportunity to spend a lot of time and with a lot of different organizations, and I think we as people are seeking, and organizations are seeking, more leaders, fewer managers, right? Is how do we inspire people to get to that position where they are willing to participate in the process excellence part of it, which I'll move to here next. One, this is a very simple thing, and there are, likely perhaps, ways for people to do this, but oftentimes is how do we give people a voice? We know that the people doing the work are the people that know the work best. So how do we give them a voice where they can actually initiate obstacles in their work, whether it be a large or small, or also generate continuous improvement ideas? This doesn't reside with one group. This responsibility resides with all of the people who call whatever organization home, that they have a desire to do that as well as a responsibility. But we also know, connecting back to the people side of things, if they submit those things or are reluctant to submit those things and we don't properly respond to them as leaders, or we don't address them, those people are simply going to stop participating. And obviously that's not the outcome we want. So how do we create that forum and that mechanism to do that and understand some of the challenges with the work specifically? And then last but not least, there is how do we understand what those things are, the size of the prize relative to them, and prioritize and engage those people in part of that improvement process, respecting the fact that some of those things, maybe be as simple just as communicating why something is the way that it is, or actually solving a particular problem that has some benefit both for the people and for the organization itself. And then last but not least, we have to use all these things to create a level of visibility that we have never had before, relative to people and process. One of the other things that we often talk about just on the visibility here momentarily is that people oftentimes are one of organizations, largest, if you look at it from a P&L point of view, one of the largest expenses, from a organizational point of view. And we also know those people are our greatest resource. But it often is a time where we have very limited visibility. Maybe these are biannual engagement surveys or annual performance reviews, and a new level of visibility to that people part of it is required and necessary. That our businesses move hour to hour, minute to minute, day to day, and we should have an understanding of how our people are doing relative to that, so that we can set them up to be successful and drive this performance forward, both in a way that is good for people and good for the performance of the business. To keep advancing forward here momentarily, this entire thing is an ecosystem. It's all kind of a system of interconnected parts. And with this, the concept that I want to get across is that in order to start any change in any journey, which we all know, we have to teach people and we have to build trust in order for this thing to be successful. So people are going to learn about a number of different things, whether it's about how do I grow and participate as an individual? How do I participate and what does it mean to deliver process excellence? And then last but not least, how do we connect this to the opportunities, within the business as well? So connecting it back to the work in the bigger picture of things. But this isn't just about creating and doing learning, right? We've all participated in this thing. And the other thing that we have learned is that where we fail is that we transfer this knowledge, but when we go back to doing our day jobs, oftentimes we revert to old habits, or it's perhaps optional, whether we're going to kind of advance in whatever it is that we're working on respectively. But as an outcome of that learning, we're going to create this path for every team member. And this is where the uniqueness comes in of, okay, I learned this, I believe this, I've assessed this. Now, how do I create this growth path for me specifically that helps me focus on the things that are important to me, but also very connected to the work? How do we help leaders support that journey? And from a people point of view, and to the left down here in the obstacle and opportunities, how do we help leaders actually generate better interactions and supporting those people, and also improving the work at the same time? And then last but not least, that all kind of culminates from an advancement point of view, is we have to understand what our people priorities are. We have to understand what our process priorities are, so that we can create this team that is growing and thriving. And then last but not least, we have to have visibility to all of this. And one of my favorite things when we're talking to people about this conversation is that there are people that are early adopters of this type of process, and they jump in and they're excited. There are also people that are hesitant for a number of reasons as well. Action tells us something, but so does no action. And all of this data and information helps us understand, so that we can go have the right interactions with people to help them either understand why this process is important and what it means for them and the organization, perhaps building trust, but then also those who are very excited, how do we help them foster and grow at the right pace for them in achieving the things that they want to do and their contribution to the work? And then here, moving right along, one other thing that I want to talk about that often comes up in concept is the concept of leader standard work, which we're all familiar with, right? And likely have leveraged, for quite some time to help us, build structure and consistent routines, in our work and in our operations. And obviously, we use that, as a baseline for a number of different things, but we also use it to clarify expectations, accountability, and then also make sure that we as leaders are staying focused on what the key operational tasks are, what is required each day to generate, the outcome that we're looking for each and every day. And I think the part that we have learned through this that is missing, and Robert mentioned this in one of his previous slides about, the focus on the process and how we engage the people. The second leg of this, relative to people is as part of our leader path and our leader standard work, how do we develop and create this path for every team member as part of this process? How do we lead through meaningful interactions with our people? These are not flybys. Hey, how was your morning? How's the work going? These are things that obviously through that learning and participation process, we learn to understand very simple things that perhaps we didn't otherwise know. And how do we make sure that when we're interacting with our people, that we're talking about the right things that are pertinent to them and pertinent to work? And then obviously, how do we create visibility to the people priorities where people are overburdened, people are struggling, people are thriving, and how do we do more of the good, relative to those things? So this is kind of the balance. Obviously, leader standard work, an incredibly powerful tool, an incredibly important tool, but how do we take into consideration and complement it, both from a process point of view, but as well as a very kind of people-centric point of view, and the harmony that these two things create, obviously, is what leads to some of the results that we're experiencing that I'll touch on here in a minute. So it's more about leveraging a tool that in a process we're very familiar with in kind of a new way as it pertains to people, in addition to the process. And so with that, I'm going to start us back, where we started and kind of in summary. Obviously, we know that we need to develop people, and through better interactions, we're driving more participation. That participation helps us improve processes and creates stronger processes. Ultimately, that stronger process, generating more sustainable and more desirable performance. And is not one or the other. All three of these things are an ecosystem and have to work together, because if one of the things that we typically talk about at the beginning is that if I'm struggling as an individual, it's going to be really hard for me to fix a process. It's just a fact. Whether, whatever the reason. But if I am in and I believe in it and I'm emotionally invested, the likelihood that I'm going to participate more, develop stronger processes, and back to the performance is highly likely, back to some of the scales and spectrums that Robert showed initially. So the last thing that I want to touch upon, obviously, as lean practitioners, we're always current state, future state, and what is this kind of delivering? And I want to illustrate, some of the power of what we're talking about here, with this. And what I'm about to show you is, in a very short period of time, think of it as, under 1 year from starting this process. But I want to walk through this here just quickly. This decline in survive status, we are asking people voluntarily to tell us where they're at on this. This is something wasn't sure people would be willing to do. And the reality is that 92% of people, this is now across thousands of people, are telling us once a month, voluntarily, which is incredibly powerful. And when we started the work, 40% of the people were saying, I'm on the negative side of this. I'm either declining or surviving. Well, then obviously you can see the correlation between if I'm in that declining or surviving, I'm likely not participating, which is opportunity, productivity, perhaps. And then next to that is, the turnover that this particular organization was experiencing, which obviously comes at a very high expense and, drives instability in the workforce as well. So there is a strong correlation between these things. And this is kind of where we started when we began with this particular organization. After doing this for a period of about 10 months or so, you can see the dramatic difference on the right-hand side there. We took the declining surviving status from 40 to 12, which is very dramatic. We see the participation rate go from 63% to 92%. And then we see the turnover essentially, more than cut in half from 46 to 17. So as people felt that they were in a good environment, they felt trusted, they were financially and emotionally secure. They began to participate, which the workforce stabilizes. And then we start to participate in improving the work, which is where we started removing those obstacles that you see there at 66. And the year-over-year annual cost reduction of those things, which is renewable, was at about 2.6 million. And a lot of these things were very simple, required no capital investment from an organization. They were just little things that went a long way with this people that then accelerated the way in which they were participating and identifying opportunities to make the work better. And then obviously for what they did, the return on investment there just north of 7, which I think we would all agree, we would kind of take that bet, all day, every day with some of our improvement work, relative to that. So I wanted to take a moment and kind of share as we embark on this journey and this new way of engaging people and connecting them to process excellence in a very intentional, thoughtful way and building the leadership habits every day that support it, we can generate some very powerful impacts that benefit the people and our organizational success. And with that, we're done. We'll see if we got any any questions that would like to be addressed. And just for those of you that like to continue the conversation, Robert and I's contact information, as well as just some other assets or other things there relative to information, if that's something of interest.
Fantastic, Matt and Robert. Thank you very much. Our attendees can send the questions via chat. But I'd like to know about your experience. Is there any particular business segment or type of process that is more challenging for engaging people to performance results?
The short answer to your question is no, because obviously, processes and people are everywhere. I say that every business has process challenges, every business has people challenge. I think what we find most is that trust is fundamental to this whole thing, and if people don't have trust, then we will not have success. And so that's something I think oftentimes we assume that we have it, but we very well may not. And also, that lack of trust may have nothing to do with anything we have done or not done as a leader or at our organization, but to that person's prior experience and what they bring with them as they join our organizations. And we have to be mindful and respectful of that.
Of course. Yeah, great. Robert, a question from Jessica Barrett. How do you assess each work culture and the types of changes its people will appreciate most?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks, Jessica. So we've actually got a framework for the meaningful employment environment to connect to process excellence. So the next step in our people part of our lean thinking, and it's got two main structures: dignity and meaningful work. People need to be treated with dignity, and the work needs to be meaningful. And that breaks down into trust, fundamental needs, a participative environment, and meaningful work. And then that breaks down into some things. And we have an assessment process that assesses against those things. So the assessment process gives you an exact roadmap on exactly what you need to do relative to building trust, providing for people's fundamental needs, creating a participative environment, and creating more meaningful work. And then that roadmap is prioritized based on what people are actually telling you.
Great. And how could we overcome the barrier of ego to review problems and facilitate the growth and the improvement?
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And obviously, we as lean practitioners, it's an art form, not a science, right? And each individual being a little bit unique and understanding that, what's behind that ego. But also, I think the interesting part is the level of granularity that we're able to get in some of these processes enables us to have a very thoughtful and intentional conversation in addressing those things. Because I think once we get past the ego, at least for the the leaders in the right mindset, I think we're always seeking to understand how can we be better in supporting our people. So it's not a science. Obviously, we can use a lot of the thoughtful information that we got, but how do we use those to drive those meaningful interactions and do so with trust and transparency, and kind of leave our egos at the door, to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
Uh,
Fantastic. We need to wrap it up here. Fortunately, we have no more time. But for our attendees, stay tuned on for more on the event schedule. Matt and Robert, thank you very much. It was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, Daniel. You and the team, you guys do such a great job. Just keep up the good work, okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye-bye,
Take care,
guys.
everyone.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.